Hello and welcome back to Long Live Hooky Street, the podcast where we rewatch and discuss every episode of Britain's most beloved TV comedy, Only Fools and Horses. I'm Jenny and I'm joined from Hong Kong today by my co-host and sister, Heather. Say hello, dude.
Hello!
Today we are continuing our discussion of the 1986 Christmas special, A Royal Flush. This is part 2. So grab an almost full bottle of Amontillado and let's continue.
So, we begin part 2 in a shop that seems to be selling various things for hunting, which is something I am vehemently against.
Oh, well, in the script it's the Gentleman's Outfitters.
Oh, okay. Because it just seems like there's a lot of hunting stuff around, like guns and things.
That's kind of part of the culture of these kind of class,
yes,
right? So, yeah.
And I hate it. So that's something about it that I hate. So it transpires that Del has brought them here to get some clothes for Rodney to wear for his weekend with Vicky's family.
I didn't realise I had to get dressed up like a free-range Wally.
I mean, have you had a look at yourself recently? I've seen wounds dress better than you.
So those are quite funny lines. There's actually, I was going to say in the last episode, there's actually not that many funny lines in A Royal Flush.
No, it doesn't have any zingers.
The writing isn't as sharp with regards to the funny lines. Yeah. So I always found the line very funny about the wounds. I think that's
Me too.
a very funny
I like that
joke.
one.
So Del seems to think that if Rodney dresses up like them being the toffs, then he will fit in better, which is probably true. But Rodney points out that him wearing different clothes won't make him any more like them, which is also true. So Rodney says,
Another thing, they're having a shooting party, aren't they? I disagree with blood sports.
which is very in keeping for Rodney's character. Rodney is exactly the sort of person that would be against blood sports. Albert suggests something to get out of doing it,
Yeah, tell him you've got a wart on your trigger finger.
which horrifies Del. Del still seems adamant that Rodney and Victoria are going to get married here, so he doesn't want him thinking he's got warts and all. So the man running the shop is predictably posh.
And what is Sir's pleasure?
Well, birds and curry, I suppose.
So Del asks the man to tog Rodney out for a weekend in the country, and he hands him £500 for Rodney's outfit, or a monkey, as it's referred to in here.
Don't you worry, Rodney. By the time he's finished with you, you'll look just like one of them.
That's what I'm frightened of.
So it's a short scene, but it's to the point, and of course it's got Albert in it, which is one of the few scenes that Albert is in this episode, so I'm loving it. And it's got a couple of the funniest lines in this scene as well. So.
True, yeah.
Any other notes?
Yeah, so this scene was filmed in a real shop. I think that's obvious. It's in Salisbury on New Canal Street. I don't know the name of it now or then, but it was a real shop. So just before this scene begins in the script, there's actually another scene that maybe was never filmed, which is them all in the van on the way to the shop. Most of the dialogue is just the three of them discussing the van and then Rodney insulting it. And they all seem to suggest that June threw up in the van the night before. So just a little bit more cut dialogue there. So John Sullivan is channeling his own beliefs here through Rodney because he personally disagreed with blood sports. He did not want them in the episode, so that was a deliberate choice.
I was about to say about that in the next scene, yeah.
Yeah, so that's how he felt about it. And like we said in the very, very early days, Rodney is John Sullivan's like self-placement character in Only Fools and Horses. He's the one that he feels most similar to. So, and then I put, why does Del have so much cash on the hip in this episode? And why lay out 500 quid for the clothes if he plans to sabotage the whole thing? So, yes.
Why doesn't he wait to see how much the clothes are before he gives the money? I mean, that's something that's normally done in a shop.
Yeah.
So you say, like, can you tog him out? And then you find out how much it is and then you pay. It's weird to put the money down and say, that's my budget. Like, find him loads of stuff that comes to that amount. Why wouldn't you want to get it cheaper?
Is this a good time to assess again then where Del is in his plan here? Because again, we said earlier, why lay out 500 quid when he only stood to make a grand back from the sabotage? At this point, does he still have faith that Rodney's going to marry a royal?
I think he does because he's trying to make him fit in as best he can.
Yeah,
by
so there's
kitting him out in this.
So when does he change his mind is the question. I guess we'll have to come to that thoughts on that in the next few scenes. So at this point, we believe that he still thinks they're going to get married.
Yeah. I mean, the only time that he could possibly have changed his mind is when he decides to bring the dinner jacket, because then he's plotting to go to the dinner already in the next scene. So that must be the time he decided. But what prompted him to decide that? There's no reason.
He knows Rodney's going away for the weekend, and if he just left them alone, the romance could have blossomed or whatever.
Yes, that weekend would have gone great if Del hadn't come. So yes, I completely agree with you. He was the one that ruined it. So yeah, I don't understand.
Although this is an area where I feel like I mean, I guess mostly focus on the next scene, but you see Rodney's reluctance here to dress up in these weird clothes and go to this place that he doesn't feel like he has anything in common with them. Here is where Rodney seems like he doesn't want the relationship to continue because, or at least if he does, he doesn't want this version of Victoria because he doesn't believe himself to be this man that she's trying to, like, or that Dell's trying to dress him up as.
No.
So, yeah, in this case, I feel awkward and uncomfortable for Rodney. I feel like he's being forced into a situation that he is not happy with. Would he have wanted to marry Victoria and be like a future duke? No. That's Dell wants that, but Rodney doesn't.
No, I completely agree with you. Yeah, Rodney looks super uncomfortable for the rest of the episode, actually.
Yes, he does.
So,
yes, in all the circumstances, the hunting party and the dinner. But yeah. We'll get on to those things. And then finally, my last note, the shop assistant, who was played by Roger Davidson, and his name in the episode is Mr. Dow, and I wonder if that's a reference to Tony Dow, who was the locations manager and the future director. He is also in, because I know we're going to come to this in the next scene, For Your Eyes Only. He's in For Your Eyes Only as well. So who is he in For Your Eyes Only?
Oh, he's one of the, I'm trying to think if that's who I'm thinking of. Is he one of the Dove hitmen?
No, you're nowhere near it, so I'll just give you. He's the trawler office. He's one of the men in the trawler on the St. George's at the beginning before it explodes. Right. Yeah.
Oh, that scene used to freak me out so much with the hand like coming out trying to like switch the emergency off. Right. For Your Eyes Only is a great movie. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Yeah,
so why are there two people from For Your Eyes Only in this episode? Because we get onto that in the next scene when we get Jack Headley. So we're going to move on now to the next scene.
Okay, so we go now to the clay pigeon shoot. And I just have to say, I'm very glad that they chose to use clay pigeons in this episode, because if they had used grouse or if they'd shown anything like that, I would never have watched this episode again. And it would have tainted Only Fools and Horses for me to have an episode that showed something like that. So I'm really glad that they didn't. And I'm glad John Sullivan was against it. But in reality, let's face it, they probably would have been shooting real birds.
Maybe, but situation. I don't know. Clay pigeon shoots were common too, or are common. So.
At first, we focus on Victoria's dad shooting and everyone applauding before ending with a shot of Rodney dressed up in a ridiculously poncy outfit. His outfit actually reminds me of Oliver Twist's outfit when he moves in with Mr. Brownlow.
Yeah.
If you go back and watch the movie, it's very it's like a young boy's outfit, which is very strange that that's the one they decided to give him.
Yeah.
And when you see how casually everyone else is dressed, I mean, surely a jumper would have sufficed, for this.
I mean, obviously they are all dressed in this very similar way, and I wonder what Victoria thought when she saw Rodney. But she should have been giving him guidance of what to wear. And to be honest,
I agree.
If he went back to his early Rodney in this episode, he should have just been himself and wore his camo jacket thing that he wears.
Yeah,
he should have been himself.
That would have been more appropriate for what they were doing, like standing out in a field. So yeah, this is ridiculous what he's wearing, and I have to say, that costs 500 quid is pretty insane. Yeah. So the way that they talk to each other, you can sort of, hear little bits in dialogue between all of them, is predictably posh, just like the shop assistant. And Rodney looks so awkward during all the sequences, what I wrote, which we've just discussed. So surely Victoria would have picked up on how uncomfortable Rodney is here.
She should have.
And well, she does point out that he continues to say thank you for everything, which is definitely a sign of nerves, which is why I think she brought it up. But there is actually a hint of flirting between them here on this line.
Thank you. I said that one on purpose, though.
I know you did.
Yeah, that's more cute.
Yeah, that's a very flirty thing.
If he's relaxing a little bit, he's starting to feel a bit more comfortable because she's making it easier for him. Yeah.
And then she just goes and ruins it completely because she suggests that Rodney has a go at the shooting, and she kind of forces him into this situation, which is pretty unfair. He said no, and then she says, "Oh, don't be a stick in the mud." Rodney continues to try and get out of it when she brings her dad over.
Well, I'll just watch if you like.
Oh, nonsense, nothing to it.
Being forced to do something you don't want to do, but also being forced to do it in front of loads of people who are experienced at it is just, I can't think of anything worse. It's a horrible situation for Rodney to be in. So you can tell in this first interaction between Henry and Rodney that Henry is kind of sizing Rodney up. You can see that he's being nice to him for Victoria's benefit, but you can see he's kind of looking him up and down and trying to figure out what his angle is and why he wants to be friends with Victoria. So Rodney goes over to shoot, and he's uncertain of how to make the person release the clay pigeons.
What do I say to him?
No!
What?
So Rodney is pointing the gun directly at the crowd, unaware that they are trying to tell him that is a huge problem. And Rodney's physical reaction here is very funny, actually.
Yeah,
He's sort of
he's
going
really
up
good,
and down, and he sort of smiles, and then like he almost looks like they're playing a trick on him, and he's going like, what are we doing? Like he doesn't seem to get it. And of course, when Henry finally comes over to Rodney, Rodney feels really bad about the whole thing.
Look, I'm sorry, old boy, but when you have a gun, you never point at...
I just realised what I did. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
So Rodney is ready to shoot, and he says pull, at which point he notices the three-wheeled van driving through the countryside in the distance. He still shoots the gun, but stares aimlessly at the van. So this next sequence of Rodney hopping around the field looking for the van while everyone else watches him in bewilderment is very funny. And it's actually cut a little bit in the DVD.
For time, yeah.
For time, yeah. It is quite long in the uncut version. So it's all of the bit before he sort of gets to the first line when he says,
Come on, where are you?
that bit is kind of cut completely. But it looks really weird the way it jumps because it is cut weirdly. All of the cuts are like that, though. They don't really make sense. Like, there's clearly continuity issues in the cuts. I actually love the fact that he gives the earmuffs back but keeps the gun at first. I always thought that was because he was like going to go and hunt Dell, which I thought was really funny. And he also goes overboard saying thank you again here. So this is the sort of going from the joke that Victoria pointed out to him. I mean, what was Rodney planning to do if he saw the van again in the distance? Like the way that he's looking for it is kind of like he's got a plan of action if he sees it. Or maybe he thought he was hallucinating that it was there in the first place, because that's kind of implied a little bit as well.
Yeah, it's a little bit of the callback to Hull and Back thing with Denzel seeing Dell, I think. But it's also, I think he was trying to interject and prevent Dell from coming to the field. Yeah.
But again, how could he have done that? Because if he'd seen it in the distance, he'd have had to like run over and catch it. I mean, there's no way. It didn't really matter. Dell was coming and there's nothing he could do about it, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So he wasn't hallucinating because Dell appears on the field driving the van. Rodney is furious that Dell has turned up with Albert, and so is Victoria.
Hello again. I didn't expect to see you here.
So Victoria tries to give Rodney a drink and Dell takes it. Can you tell me another episode that happens in, dude? When someone brings a drink for Rodney and Dell takes it away and drinks it first.
Doesn't he do that a lot? Yeah, I couldn't pinpoint.
There's one specific episode that happens in that I can think of.
Okay, just tell me because I don't know.
It's the unlucky winner is when they're on the balcony outside and Cassandra brings a drink for Rodney and Dell takes it and drinks it.
I would say that if you went through and watched carefully, that must happen a bunch of times. Especially later.
I don't know. I feel like that specific thing where like a woman brings Rodney a drink and then Dell drinks it. I think that is just these two times.
Yeah, but there's loads of times with tea and other things. So maybe if you're just talking about drinks, because I know he drinks like Albert's tea and Grandad's tea and Rodney's tea a lot of the time when they're in the flat. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about specifically someone bringing him a drink for Rodney and then Dell just takes it before it gets to Rodney and drinks it. But yes. So Dell tells an elaborate story as to why he has turned up because Rodney forgot his dinner jacket.
Oh, I see. Well, that was very nice of you. Wasn't it, Rodney?
Yeah.
So Rodney calls bullshit and argues with Dell, and Victoria brings her dad over to meet Dell. And you can see straight away how much Victoria's father does not like Dell, especially when Dell places an eaten chicken leg on top of the fruit, which is absolutely disgusting. I agree. So Dell makes chit-chat about the Duke's horse, and Dell is overly familiar with the Duke. So I do personally think that you shouldn't have to put on airs and graces around anybody. I don't think that you should have to be, like all polite. Polite is different. You shouldn't have to sort of pretend you're not common, let's say, when you're around royalty. I think as long as you're not rude, you should be able to be yourself. But most people would expect you to posh yourself up when you talk to the monarchy. I think that's sort of something a lot of people would say you should do. They certainly wouldn't expect you to tap them on the arm like Dell does to Henry. So I think all of these sort of breaks in protocol, if you like, I think that they make Henry and Victoria like hate Dell even more. I think it's like ramped up to the extreme just from these first few minutes because of how casual Dell is with him. And even though he would probably be like, oh no, be yourself, like I don't mind, like he clearly has an issue with sort of that line being crossed with a stranger that Dell is. The Duke makes a mistake of offering Dell some hospitality.
If you're around later, I'm sure Cook will provide you with something to eat.
Oh, stay for dinner. Ah, well, pas de deux. And as luck would have it, as I was getting Rodney's evening suit out of the wardrobe, mine came along with it. So I've got all my gear here.
So every single person in the tent is pulling a clear facial expression here, and Dell completely ignores all of it. It's like his character has completely lost the ability to read the room in this whole episode, which again is not really like Del, although he does do that in some other ones as well. So Henry tells his assistant to set another place for dinner so Del can join them, which is actually very nice of him. He didn't have to do that. He could have been like, oh no, we haven't got room. So he's actually making the effort, again, probably just for Victoria's sake. So Del hears the shooting in the background and he decides he would like to have a try. So Del tells them that he has his own weapon and he sends Albert to get it from the van. And Albert monologues to himself as he walks to the van.
Albert, would you mind?
Albert, would you mind? Couldn't care bloody less whether I minded or not. Fight for your country, go down shark-infested seas, what thanks you get? I tell you, no thanks, even from your own relatives. They turn you into a gunwaller.
So Albert doesn't have much in this, so it's nice to have this little bit of him just having some lines, having something to do. And I figured that might be even why they gave him this, to be honest, just to give him a little bit extra to do, because they couldn't really find places for him to have lines.
Same with putting him in the basement. They hadn't got anything else to do, so they were like, let's bring him to Berkshire or whatever and put him in the scene
exactly.
with
There's no reason for him to come with Del along on this weekend. Like, why would Del bring Albert if he's trying to make a good impression? But he does. So yeah, I think it's just to have him in the episode.
Yeah.
So Del quips.
He's been with us for years. It's a bit like the income tax.
Which again is quite a nice line.
Except they don't pay income tax.
No, that's true. No income tax, no VAT. So Del goes over to shoot and he's offered earmuffs, but he mistakes them for headphones. I always thought that was really funny.
No, I can't listen to music while I'm shooting. Right, ready when you are, John. Do you mean Paul? Oh, sorry, Paul. In your own time, my son.
Now that's really funny because when I was writing the episode breakdown and I was recording myself speaking, every time I said Paul, it came up as Paul.
Yeah.
So it's almost like it knew. They do sound very similar. So Del is amazing at shooting, and I have to wonder where he learned to do that, because it's not explained at all why Del is such an awesome shot. I mean, he doesn't even sort of look, he doesn't hold the gun up like on his shoulder like the others do and look along the barrel. He literally just pulls it up and like shoots from almost like the waist, and he still hits the targets. I mean, that is some really good shooting.
Well, this is a really important point to make, actually, the fact that Del is really good at shooting and it doesn't get explained. That's deliberate, because so John Sullivan wrote it this way deliberately. And so because I've just been reading David Jason's most recent autobiography, this is a quote from that. So David Jason does not hate a royal flush. I think most fans know that. He doesn't really understand the hate it gets. He can see people's points, but he doesn't hate it. And he says that this scene is one of his very favorites. The part where Del shoots the gun is funny because he says Del's accuracy runs directly counter to what would be expected of Del. And he calls this one of John Sullivan's neat comic twists.
That's true. I mean, I wouldn't have expected Del to be bumbling because, again, I know Del is a smart guy and he has some intelligence, but I mean, I think they make him a bit stupider in some of the later episodes, but he's clearly a smart guy and he understands the way the world works and he has some experience.
Well, he's street smart, he's not book smart. So that's supposed to be one of the contrasts between Del and Rodney, isn't it? Rodney's supposed to be book smart but not street smart. Del's supposed to be the opposite, and Del being able to shoot would totally go in with that, but not offering the audience an explanation for why is actually quite interesting. Yeah. It's like, why? What did he learn to shoot?
Yeah, I mean, this isn't just like, oh, he's good. This is like, he's fucking awesome. Like, And again, everyone is clearly flabbergasted at Del's ability. That's like wonderful to see all these like royals just be like, So Rodney comes over and wants to know where Del got the gun from. So obviously Rodney knows he's a good shot. So he didn't ask about that. He asked where he got the gun.
Iggy Higgins.
Iggy Higgins? Iggy Higgins robs banks.
I know, but it's Saturday.
Now, when I was a kid, I did not get that joke at all. Of course, now I do, and I think it's very funny. So yeah, I really like that. And I love the name Iggy Higgins. I can't even say it. Iggy Higgins. Iggy Higgins. I can't say it.
Iggy Higgins.
Iggy Higgins. Yeah, it's really hard for me to say that. So Del heads back to the tent to eat more food, and that's the end of the scene. So any notes on that scene, dude?
Yeah, so the Duke of Mailbury was played by Jack Headley, who we personally remember from For Your Eyes Only as Mr. Havelock. But he was in a ton of other movies, dating all the way back to 1957. And he only passed away in 2021, 92, age of 92. It's a good age, isn't it?
Went for him. He died.
So now we've made it to Covington House of Berkshire, which was fictional, but the house used to represent it was the 18th century house at Clarendon Park, which was just east of Salisbury. Now I wrote here, poor Rodney, I would hate this situation so much. Even without Dell there, he does not seem to be enjoying himself. And terrible instructions from Henry for the gun. The first thing you do when you train anybody anything is you tell them, like, the biggest danger or the biggest risk. And I should think shooting. I mean, I've had shooting lessons as well. I've been to several gun ranges out here. They don't even let you in this section until you've learned not to point the gun at people. So not only that, but that he doesn't tell him that, but his instructions are absolutely awful.
Let that off, both triggers. And what you do is keep this closed in because of the kick, and then get the two barrels, keep both eyes open, cover it, and then fire. All right?
True. It's very short. Yes.
Yeah,
not a
and
lot of details.
He does not enunciate. He doesn't explain what he means by things like kickback. Like, if you've never fired a gun, you might not even know what that means. Like, he's a terrible teacher, and they all deserved what happened, and that was not Rodney's fault.
So they deserved Rodney to pull the trigger, is what you're saying?
No, but they deserve to have that fear, right?
Yeah.
And then also, like that bit where Vicky is telling him to put it down and they're all telling him to put it up, so they're telling him to put it up.
Yes.
Weird. Why?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
You'd think that if they go shooting this often, that they'd have some sort of safety word that they would use, or like a method of safety where they all go, if anything goes wrong, we always tell them put the gun down, or if something goes wrong, everyone like point your guns up. It does seem very strange that they are in disagreement about that. And you'd think that the most important thing would be that they would agree on up or down to stop Rodney. And like, why are they both so adamant? Why is Henry so adamant that it's up and Vicky so adamant that it's down? Why doesn't one of them just suddenly change to the other ones? It's only for the joke, right? Because Rodney then can go up and down and all over the place, and it can be funny.
I think so, because I think, I'm not going to pull the script back up on my phone right now, but I think it just says they all yell up. So I don't know if that was a last minute game changer. Like, maybe they thought, oh, this will be more fun if you have it too.
And it is. I mean, watching his reaction is funny. Watching him go up and down and not sure which way to go.
Because if they all yelled up, you're right, it wouldn't have made sense that he didn't understand what that meant. But so I wrote, Vicky is super rude to Dell, and the way that she just kind of gives him that death stare and is like, oh, hello again. It's very rude.
Very rude.
Unnecessary, and doesn't kind of fit with the character that we met in that first scene. This whole scene to me is reminiscent of A Touch of Glass. Very similar kind of behavior from Dell, and then the looking down like we got with Lord Ridgemere and Lady Ridgemere.
Totally agree.
Patterson was played by Arnold Peters, who has been in almost everything that you can think of in terms of British comedy famous names. Porridge, Dad's Army, Citizen Smith, and It Ain't Off Mom.
Mom. Well done, dude.
Yay! Woo! And that is all I had for that scene, so we can move on to the dinner.
The most famous parts of the episode. Okay, so we've broken this down into smaller scenes, though. So we start with the posh foyer at the home of the Duke of Melbury. That's what I said.
Yeah.
I guess it would be a hall, not a foyer. That's the
I guess it's like, it's the
me.
big, like, arched ceiling chandelier. Like,
yeah. So Dell and Rodney are walking down the staircase together, sort of making, I guess, a grand entrance. And they stand at the top of the stairs and look out over the crowd.
Look at that, Rodney. Hey, what a sight. Eh? Makes you proud to be British.
Still love saying that, doesn't he?
Yeah, I know he does. So same as in To Hull and Back.
And he ain't heavy as my uncle.
Yes, makes you very, very proud. Yeah, he looks out. Yeah, over.
No, he says it makes you proud to be British, doesn't it? He says it right before he talks about So that's another
Tobacco
time
Road.
he uses that line.
Yeah, Dell is. We've spoken about this in some of the other episodes. Dell is patriotic.
Yeah, and he thinks that this is the pinnacle of British. Like, he thinks a big royal house and the country and hunting and a big fancy mansion with chandeliers is what it means to be British, which is maybe strange because of his cultural background and London and like the rough and ready kind of upbringing that he's had. I would say that is British in reality. Like, a lot of people, and especially in America, a lot of people think that British means royal and like royalty is like depictive of what Britain is, but we know that that's not true. Only a very small part of Britain is royal and hunting parties and stuff. A lot of the real genuine British people, like Dell, are actually real people who live in council flats. So it is weird how he generally tends to say it makes you proud to be British when he's in situations of wealth. And,
Yes.
you know, like in He Ain't Heavy Is My Uncle, he's talking about the destroying all the old flats to build like nice new ones and make a ton of money. That makes you proud to be British. So yeah, it's like he has a distorted version of a distorted idea of what that means.
Yeah, I just said Del clearly has a lot of admiration for the upper class.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an admiration that I personally don't share, but mainly because they have so much money and they did nothing to earn it, and they rarely use it for anything good in society, which they absolutely could, considering how much money they have.
Which is not a blanket generalization, because there are plenty of rich people that do give back.
Oh yeah, no, I'm talking more about the monarchy here
Yeah.
when I refer to that, because they did nothing except be born into it, and they don't do anything good for society as far as I'm concerned. So Del tries to get some attention from the top of the stairs by shouting,
All right.
and Rodney looks absolutely terrified about the night ahead of them.
Del, listen. I was nervous enough about this weekend, and that was without you being here. But you arrived, and your presence alarms me. What I'm trying to say is, behave yourself, eh? Please.
So if Del had only listened to Rodney.
Yeah.
We get a slightly ominous line from Del.
Listen, I want you to know something. No matter what happens tonight, right? I'm doing it for you.
Now, do you think that is referring to his plan?
Yeah, so here's one idea that could be the case, right? Del arrived at the hunting party. He saw all the people, he saw the situation, and that is when he thought, oh, I can exploit this, and this won't
and
work
there's
out.
no way
This
they'll
won't
let
work
Rodney
out.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe that is the way. Because obviously when he says that, no matter what happens tonight, I'm doing it for you, he must have decided at that point that he was going to sabotage the relationship.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the trigger is, but it's plausible that it's when he met all of the family and realised Rodney doesn't fit in.
But I don't think that getting absolutely hammered was part of the plan.
No.
That's just something that happened organically, and then Del made it even worse.
Yeah, because you go back to that line in the scene that was cut from the script completely where he says, don't get Oliver Twist in front of the family. And then that's exactly what he does. I don't think he meant to get as drunk as he was.
Yeah, that's true. So Del describes the people as the creme de menthe of British nobility, and he insists Rodney will make a good impression with his help. Couldn't be more wrong. After Del swears that they will both be on their best behaviour, we get a scene that's cut in the DVD version. He looks down to see a woman with large breasts, and he proceeds to comment on those breasts, much to Rodney's disdain. So we can clearly see that Del did not mean anything that he just said, because the second that he promises to be on his best behaviour, he's perving from the balcony on one of the women.
Oh, so that's cut from the DVD.
That's cut, yeah. So basically, as soon as they have the conversation, they just walk down the stairs. That's completely gone. So they make their way down the stairs, and Del picks up a glass of champagne, and Rodney goes off in a different direction. I'm not sure why they split there. And Del taps Henry on the shoulder, and Henry refers to Del as Trotter, which I think is already a sign of how he feels about him, because he doesn't want to call him Del. That would be friendly. Trotter is kind of like, ugh, this piece of shit on my shoe. Now we get the first ever running gag for the final part of the episode.
Is that a Da Vinci?
No, it's not.
Ah, what a shame. Because he's my most favourite artist.
To be fair to Del here, he's trying his best to make conversation with Henry and to be polite. Actually, Del is being very nice here, and Henry is the one who is being rude. Now, this is something else that's interesting that's been cut. At the end of this exchange between Del and Henry very rudely, in the middle of Del talking to him, sees someone on the other side of the room and just walks away to go and talk to them. That is cut in the DVD version.
Just for time, maybe, yeah.
I don't know, it's because it shows Henry in a really bad light and it shows Del in a nicer light. Del was just having a nice conversation and Henry was so rude.
Well, you would think that he would leave that in then if he was trying to make Del
Yeah,
look
you
better,
would. That's
so,
why
yeah.
I just thought that was interesting. It's literally just a couple of seconds before the end. They keep the conversation, then they just sort of fade out to the kitchen. Whereas, yeah, in this uncut version, Henry walks off. Anyway, that's all I had for that scene. Any notes?
Just the scene starting on the big chandelier, I feel, is a little bit of a nice nod to A Touch of Glass.
To A Touch of Glass, yeah.
Poor Rodney, he still has that little stain on his jacket, and that is in the script.
Yes,
it says it in the script. He still has a light stain from the ice cream, which is like a little bit telling, like the memory of the opera has not faded and nor has the ice cream. Yeah, so I wrote the same as what you said, which is this conversation is very telling, and the ominous like way that Del says, no matter what happens. So this is probably the conversation that would alert the audience that something's different. But yeah, we still don't know when Del's plan materialized, and we want to hear everybody's theories about this in the comments. Like, at what point did Del change his mind? Was it before he drove down? Was it after the hunting party? Was it while he was getting dressed for the dinner this night? At this point, I don't think anybody could dispute that he has the plan in place at this point, right? He didn't change his mind midway through the dinner. So yeah, that's all I had for that scene. I think it cuts to down in the kitchen now, right?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
So yeah, we see now in the kitchen that Albert has been sent there.
Yeah.
So Albert's not invited to the big posh dinner, but actually the staff seem really happy that Albert's there with them, and Albert certainly seems far more happy there than he would have been if he'd have been dressed up and sucking up to the nobility.
Yeah, I'll give you a word of warning. Don't give Mr. Trotter any piggies. They go everywhere.
Just a bit of foreshadowing. So the cook seems very interested in who the Trotters are.
So they're not of noble birth, then?
No, the noisy one is a fly pitcher and the young one's his apprentice.
I'm surprised here that Del did not brief Albert on what to say if people asked him who they are. Because the last time we saw Del face to face with any sort of nobility in A Touch of Glass, he flat out lied about what he did for a living, and he seemed ashamed to tell them the truth. But for this episode, it seems that Del is kind of okay and being a bit more upfront about who they are. In some ways, he almost flaunts it. So yeah, it's very different. And again, maybe that's part of the plan. I'm not sure. Yeah,
is that an argument for maybe he talked to Albert on the way down and Albert wasn't told because Del doesn't care because he knows he's going to sabotage? Yeah. It's like if the plan was still in place at that point, wouldn't he have said, Albert, don't go telling them that we're fly pitchers? So yeah.
Yeah, if he wants them to get married, Del would definitely not want them to know the truth about the family. But if he wants them to be like horrified that they're going to get married, then he would want them to know the truth about the family.
All right. So that's an argument for he knew before he drove down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, it just seems that Albert would have had some sort of instruction from Del, because Albert is very honest about who they are here.
Yeah.
So Albert tells the cook all about his experiences in the war. And actually, I wonder here if Albert refusing to talk about his war stories and then suddenly launching into speaking about them was the original running joke that they were going to do before they started during the war.
Yeah.
Because this gag has been used a couple of times now. I know in The Longest Night they did it, and I think in To Hull and Back they did it as well. So I wonder if that was actually going to be the running gag, because during the war still hasn't started yet. Yeah, Albert sort of being like, I'd never talk about it, and then talking about it.
Yeah.
Because it is funny.
It could be,
the way he does that.
I think you're right, because they do start a lot of stories with that. Yeah. And also, there are quite a lot of fans that have an argument that none of Albert's war stories are true. They're all fabricated.
That's true. Well, they absolutely could be. I mean, you don't know, do you? If he did make up the stories, he was very creative. Because, like, I think about the wig story. How did a wig save your life? Like, I think that story is very creative if he made it up. So, yeah. Anyway, the waiter enters.
That little fella out there is really knocking back the champers. He's had nearly 3/4 of a bottle to himself already. He keeps talking about Leonardo da Vinci. It's like he knew him.
Now, in the DVD version, that's where the scene stops. So we get quite a lot of this scene in the uncut version that we don't see. So Albert ignores what's being said by that guy. Maybe he thought it wasn't Del he was talking about. He doesn't say Del. He says that little guy. So it might not have been Del. So there's a chance that he doesn't know. And Albert continues to talk about his war story when Patterson enters and cuts him off.
Some relation of yours, isn't he?
Who? Leonardo da Vinci?
No. The gentleman outside who thinks these stuffed olives are pickled grapes.
So the waiter asks if Del was also in the Navy, and Albert says that he was the only one in the family who ever went to sea until he remembers.
I'll tell a lie. My grandmother's brother was safety officer on a Titanic. Yeah, but I never talk about it.
So apparently a trotter is responsible for sinking the Titanic. That's a plot twist. But again, all of that is cut in the DVD version. It literally just talks about Leonardo da Vinci and then it stops. Any other notes on that scene, dude?
Just one note, and that is about Mrs. Miles, who was played by Kate Williams. She eventually went on to be a regular on EastEnders, but she had been in a ton of other stuff, and one of those was John Sullivan's other show, Just Good Friends. But she was also in Widows alongside Eva Motley, who played Corinne, Denzel's wife, who died back in 1985. So I thought that was an interesting link.
Yeah.
But that was all I had for that scene. Yeah, if you want to move on to the dinner.
So now we go to the dinner table, and from the looks of it, everyone's just kind of finished eating and they're in that after dinner kind of mode. And it's basically a load of posh people having dinner. And Del and Rodney and Victoria are sitting at one end of the table with her father sitting at the other end. One of the guests asks Henry who Rodney is.
Oh, he's just a friend. She met him in a street market. She's going through her working artist stage at the moment, just like her mother, bless her.
This kind of confirms what I said at the beginning about Victoria. The world of the Trotters is completely alien to her, and she would just like to dip her toe in, but she'd never want to live there permanently. So yeah, she's just kind of common people like you. So Henry says that she has already brought other colourful characters down for the weekend. So we know that Rodney is not the first, and there's kind of a story hinted here that there was one that beat up Patterson in the library.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that Rodney is pretty tame compared to some of the people that Victoria has brought through the doors of late.
And the other fella, his brother?
Yes, well, he's the biggest artist of them all.
Yeah, Henry. Is that a Da Vinci?
So here in the DVD version, there is a very minor cut, but I think it makes such a big difference. The part where Henry hesitates to call Del something really bad is cut out. So he just says he's the biggest artist of them all. And it's a very minor thing, but yeah, I just wonder sort of what was going through John Sullivan's mind when he made cuts like that, like, because that just makes Henry look bad. It's nothing to do with Del. So was he like trying to adjust all the characters?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we don't know, do we? Did he cut that to make the scene flow quicker?
It's so minor though, but it does make a difference to the character. It looks like he's about to say something really horrible about Del, and then he stops himself.
I think it's because it's the meanness of the characters in general and the bad atmosphere. If you go to say something like he's a big, well, and then if you just say he's the biggest artist of them all, it almost sounds more like he's joking around than he's more serious. So maybe that's why. Trying to lighten it.
Yeah, it could be. That's possible. I think he was just trying to lighten everything, wasn't he? Because he got so many comments about it being so dark. But again, the laugh track does a lot of that for him.
Yeah.
Anyway, Patterson is walking around the table and he steps on all the peas that Del has dropped. So this is a very juvenile joke, but I love it because I am childish. So Del asks for more alcohol and Rodney asks him to go easy because Del is already clearly very drunk.
I'm with you, I'm just enjoying myself, that's all.
Oh, no, but when you enjoy yourself, nobody else does.
And this is very true, actually, this statement from Rodney, because I think back again to the scene in A Touch of Glass where Grandad Rodney and like the nobility are all clearly uncomfortable in the living room and Del doesn't seem to care at all. He seems completely unfazed by it. In all fairness, this behavior isn't completely out of character for Del. Like a lot of people comment that Del is like not himself in this episode, but actually Del sort of, as Rodney says, having fun at everyone else's expense and he doesn't care. That is kind of in character for Del. We have seen him do that on other occasions. Maybe not to the extent that he does it in this episode and the cruelty sort of underneath it. But yeah, Del's okay to have a good time. If everyone else is bummed out, he doesn't mind.
Yeah, and I think at this point he's telling lots of childish jokes and maybe acting slightly embarrassingly, but it's not this part of his behaviour that people necessarily think is as out of character. It's the fact that he twists it later. And yeah, I mean, Rodney's not quite right when he says that nobody else has a good time when Del's having a good time, because obviously his friends do. Like, you see lots of occurrences in the future of him hanging out with his friends and they're all drunk and they're having a great time. And so it's really just when he does it around people that aren't his class, I guess.
Well, I also think maybe he's just talking about himself, because Rodney never seems to have a good time when Del's having a good time. I think about Miami Twice, a lot of instances of that being shown.
That when he says that is very similar to Miami Twice. But yeah, Rodney has a good time with him at like his bachelor party and the class of 62 reunion. So he does sometimes have fun with Del when he's drunk, but not this time.
Yeah, you're right. It is just the posh people that don't enjoy Del. Like those people in the pub when Adrian, Chloe, those people.
Basically, all the people that Del wants to bond with, but they don't like him as a person. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So Del says,
I'm reaching the point in the evening when I'm going to project you.
Look, I do not want to be projected. Have you got that? I want to stay extremely unprojected.
So here we still don't really know what Del's plan is. We can kind of guess that he, at the moment, because we don't know any different, that he's still planning to get Rodney and Victoria married. So the projection of Rodney is to make him look good, in theory.
Right.
Victoria points out,
I think he's a little drunk.
He's always been a little drunk.
I love that play on words. I think that's really funny. And Del begins a conversation with the lady next to him, and she is, well, as you would expect.
Tell me, it's Trotter, isn't it?
Yes, that's right, but me friends call me Del.
I see. Tell me, Trotter, how do you come to know Henry?
So Del announces to the lady that Victoria and Rodney will get engaged, and she is very shocked, but Del asks her to keep quiet. So Patterson puts another bottle of alcohol on the table directly in front of Del, and surely Patterson could see that this was a bad idea. He could clearly see how drunk Del was, but I guess he just has to do that as part of his duties to put on the decanters. But Del assumes that the entire decanter is for him, which I think is quite funny, and he tells the woman next to him that she can share his until hers arrives, which is quite funny. So any notes on that scene, dude?
If Vicky's other guests have been worse than Del, like if one of them beat up Patterson, it sounds like maybe she does just come down every time with a different guy, and maybe she just saw Rodney as a one-time thing, and we don't know that, but he says she's always bringing colourful characters back, and I think if somebody beat up Patterson, that is probably worse than what Del does.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, that's assault. Of course it's worse. Yeah, crazy. But I also wonder why they let her keep bringing these people to the house, if that's happened already.
Yeah. Well, she is the lady of the house, so yeah, I don't think they have any choice. But
I know, but still.
Yeah, no, that's all I had for that scene.
So now we go to a very short scene back in the kitchen. I guess it was just to break things up.
Mm-hmm.
So Albert is still telling his war story. So it's like he's been talking for ages because they're all cleaning up the kitchen around him. And the poor waiter's sitting there looking bored out of his skull. And it's really just one line.
That story will haunt me till the day I die.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
So again, I feel like these scenes were just put in to give Albert more to do. And to, again, as you say, break up the dinner scenes, maybe. That's why.
Because I think that they were supposed to show how the dinner was progressing. So you cut back and forth from the meal, then down to the kitchen, they're cleaning up. So it shows X amount of time has passed. Yeah, basically. That's all they were.
Yeah.
And then also so it could cut back to things like the whistling glass, which is supposed to start the next scene.
Well, so that is not in the DVD version.
Right.
I don't know why that was cut, because actually that's quite funny, the whistling glass thing, as a way to show that Del's like being playful and he's drunk. I don't think he comes across bad, like, in that interaction. But yeah, I guess John Sullivan felt that he did.
Maybe it's because everyone's silent and just watching him. Maybe that's why, because he didn't like that. But I mean, he wrote it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. He must have been having such a battle with himself when he was editing this.
Yeah, and it was like such a long time has passed as well since he wrote it. So he wrote it back in like the late 80s, and then he's editing
I wonder
it.
if he was like just really influenced by all the people telling him that Del came across really badly in this, because he may not have thought, surely he couldn't have thought it when he made the episode, or he wouldn't have written it like this.
No, I've got more notes on what he thinks in a little bit. So,
right, okay.
Yeah. But so, we're on to this scene now, right? And this scene is the scene that everyone thinks is the worst scene maybe in the history of the show.
I said we've come to one of the most hated scenes in the entire episode, and probably in the entirety of Only Fools and Horses.
Right. And I think most people would agree with that.
Now this scene has so many cuts and things that were changed in the DVD version versus the uncut version, so I'm going to stick to describing what the uncut version shows, but I'll try and sort of let you know if it's in or out of the DVD version. Del begins to make the sound with the crystal glass, and we see how drunk Del is at this point because his hair is all messed up and his clothes are also, messy.
Mm-hmm.
So Henry's friend has a little moan about Del again, and Del is asking Victoria about the crystal, which she and Rodney are clearly worried that he's going to break.
Put it down.
And Del pulls a face at Rodney. Looks like he's basically acting like a child. He's got this childish reaction to Rodney telling him to put it down. So yeah, it's like Rodney's the dad and Del's the kid at this point. So Del decides to start a conversation with Henry, who is sitting at the other end of the table, so everyone can hear what's being said.
Here, Henry, this knife.
It is not a Da Vinci.
And actually, these little Da Vinci jokes, I think that they are needed in this scene, because the rest of this scene, honestly, is not very funny and it's kind of uncomfortable to watch. So the Da Vinci jokes are good. And I'm glad that they were kept in for the most part. So Del uses the knife on the crystal at this point, starts ding, 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 as though he's going to make an announcement. But it turns out that he's just messing around. So he made the whistling with the crystal, and then he's trying to make an announcement, and all of it is just him playing around with the cutlery and the glasses. But the announcement part, sort of everybody stops and sort of slowly turns their heads one at a time to look at him. So it's done kind of quite dramatically.
Yeah.
I guess Sullivan was trying to build up a bit of tension here, that we were kind of wondering what Del was going to say next. So he kept sort of doing these moments where it looked like Del was going to do something really dramatic and then he kind of didn't. So maybe that was what that was about in the original writing. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So Del tries to flog some of the cutlery from the beginning of the episode that we saw in the market to the woman sitting next to him, which again reminded me of a touch of Glass when he's trying to sell the cat that sings "How much is that dog in the window" to the nobility. So Del is always on the lookout to sell things. It doesn't matter what situation he's in. He'll always try and sell some crap to someone, which I love about his character. So someone sitting near Rodney actually starts asking him about where he's from. This is a line that really stood out to me as how they cut it in the DVD version. So I'm going to play you the original thing that Rodney says here, and then I'll tell you what's cut. You can hear how unhappy he is.
Peckham in London.
And in the DVD version, he just says Peckham, and then there's nothing else. That hesitation, that sadness, that coyness in Rodney's voice is so telling for how he's feeling at this point. And it's awful. It's awful to see him like this. He looks so upset, basically. And yeah, I hate seeing Rodney like that. And unfortunately, Del gets involved with their conversation, and Del starts to argue with the guy about footballers and how good or bad various footballers are. I couldn't possibly comment because I know nothing about football, but Del is dismissive and argumentative, and he has a lot of attitude, which seems to annoy the guy, basically. It's interesting, I think I did mention this earlier, but in the DVD version, the laugh that is used in this part here is taken from later in the scene when Del makes the joke about the arse that's cut. Mm-hmm. And it's just very weird, the laugh, because it's so over the top for such a shit joke in the DVD version, because he just says he stands, he doesn't need a box, he's tall enough to see, isn't he? Like, it's so over the top.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. But again, because they wanted to keep the bit of Albert like looking up at the ceiling and the banging, that's why they kept that bit in. And you know, it's literally almost straight after that bit that Del mentions about the drugs, and then the scene ends in the DVD version. So yeah, it's far longer, the scene in the uncut version here.
Yeah.
And it's just really strange to see how hacked up it is when you watch them side by side like I did.
Yeah, also the cut version is unnatural for it to have progressed from a joke about a football box to the drug story, right?
Yes, totally agree. It's very weirdly cut. There's literally a few lines about Rodney's athletic career, and then he goes straight to, they weren't his drugs, and it's over like very quickly. So yeah, there's none of that build up. It's not natural at all, as you said.
Yeah.
But then it wouldn't be, because it's hacked to pieces. Now we get Del addressing the entire table, and this is where he brings up about the athletic career.
Rodney, he had a great future, you know, as an athlete.
That's jolly interesting. Rodney, which area of athletics?
Well, it was
all sorts.
So again, Rodney just looks so defeated here. His voice, it sounds like he's struggling to say anything. It's really awful. Yeah, just feel so sorry for him. And Del continues to bullshit about Rodney's athletic career, which everybody kind of catches on as bullshit. Also, Del tells everyone that Rodney has 2 GCEs and says,
"This time next year, he's going to be a millionaire."
That's very nice to hear.
I think Henry's being very condescending here. But to be fair, Del is completely ruining his dinner party, so there's no reason that he wouldn't be.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, Henry's being very restrained here. He could be, far more rude and abusive than he's being.
Yeah, and I think that builds up again to the huge "that is enough" thing at the end, which I assume is not cut from the cut version. So let me just clarify then. In the cut version, the DVD version, does he tell the story about the ski accident?
No,
all right, because that's what makes Henry yell.
None of the jokes part afterwards are in it.
Right.
Yeah, like I said, it literally just talk about the athletics, and then he went to university and he left after 3 weeks, and then they weren't his drugs, and that's it.
Oh wow, so it doesn't have him go, "That is enough, Trotter."
I don't think so. Or he says, "I want to see you outside now, Trotter," or something like that is maybe still in the DVD version. Yeah, so it's completely different. The reason that he calls Del outside is completely it doesn't make sense that he calls Del outside, to be honest, because Del says they weren't his drugs. You think Rodney would have been the one that he would have wanted to speak to.
So when in the uncut version, it's the skiing accident story that upsets
Yes,
everybody,
it's
not the
the
drugs.
joke that he
Yeah.
starts telling him about the skiing accident.
Yeah, the revelation
exactly.
of him taking drugs is not the reason in the original. No.
And again, why wouldn't he talk to Rodney?
Having us talking about the ski accident wasn't really David Dell's fault because he didn't know.
He did. That's why I pointed out earlier. Do you remember in part 1 I told you that Rodney tells him about the skiing accident? And I said that'll become very important
But
later.
that's important.
He does know.
But that is also not necessarily something a drunk Dell would remember. And I don't think he's telling that ski story to be vindictive. He doesn't realise it.
No, I agree. But it comes across badly because he
Yes,
says,
it does.
oh, well, I'll talk about it. This is a killer.
Right.
So yes, so we carry on. And unfortunately, the conversation that they're having about being a millionaire prompts Henry to ask Rodney about his stint at art college.
Yeah.
Which Rodney is actually honest about, and he says he was only there for 3 weeks. Now, Rodney could have easily lied here, but he didn't. He said, I was there for 3 weeks. And Rodney tries to brush over the reason that he left, personal reasons.
Yeah.
But Dell completely ruins it for him.
Weren't his fault.
The hell?
No, Rodney, no. It's important that these good people know the whole truth. They weren't his drugs, what he was found in possession of. Right, eh? No, they weren't. They belonged to this Chinese tart.
So the uncomfortable awkwardness of this scene cannot be overstated, especially without the laugh track. My God, it is excruciating to watch. It really is. And Dell tells the entire story of what happened with Rodney, and Rodney just looks absolutely humiliated. And Vicky obviously didn't know because she also looked shocked. I mean, there was a chance that Rodney might have told her something about his past. I mean, you don't know, but he obviously didn't. And yeah, she looks appalled. But again, she looks like she's blaming Rodney, which is honestly, it's not her place at all to do that. This is his past and he's not the same guy, and it was a very minor offense. So I just hate the way that she also kind of judges Rodney in this bit.
I agree, yeah. I think I wrote Vicky's look of disgust over marijuana. What? She's supposed to be an artist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly what I said as well. So honestly, this whole sequence of Dell speaking to everyone is extremely uncomfortable. So I won't go into too much detail about everything, but the scene, as I said, has already ended on the DVD version at this point. So I'll try and just point out the relevant parts, I guess, to move the scene along. So Dell decides to lighten the mood and says he's going to tell some jokes. And everyone is already very uncomfortable.
The boy stood on the burning deck. The water shone like glass. A burning ember flew down his neck and burnt him on the ankle.
Now that laugh then is after that joke, and that's when we flash back to the kitchen and we see them looking at the ceiling and Dell stamping on the floor. And I just thought this laugh is very Hugo.
Yeah, Hugo.
Hugo. So that's for our Victor and Hugo fan, the one fan out there. Thank you for chiming in about that show. No one else seems to know it. So the final joke is when Dell takes things too far.
And you hear the one about the Irish bloke on a skiing holiday, eh? There was this Irish bloke, right, and he won a holiday in a contest of some sort or another to go skiing, right? You'll love this. This is a killer.
So obviously that is extremely insensitive of Dell. And this is when Henry has had enough and he yells at Dell to go outside.
Yeah.
And when Dell leaves, he tells Rodney that he's going to clinch the deal as he goes past. So I assume he is talking about the deal that he had in mind and not the marriage thing. When I was younger, I always thought he meant I'm going to suggest you guys get married now and this is going to go ahead. But he wasn't talking about that, as we know now. He was talking about I'm going to extort money now. So Victoria has clearly decided that Rodney should leave.
Are you still staying overnight? Or not?
And Rodney just looks like he's about to burst into tears at this point.
Yeah.
As we just said, I think Victoria's a bit of a bitch here because none of this was Rodney's fault.
No.
He wasn't happy that Dell was there either, and he did try to get Dell to leave. And I assume the reason that she goes cold on Rodney is because she hears about this drug conviction. But as you just said, if she wants to be around artists, she's going to have to get used to things like this because it's part of the culture in art schools, in art colleges. And of course, she does. But then, as I said before, she doesn't want to be a part of that culture. She's a pretender. She's all talk. She's all like, oh, I love it. I'm going to be a part of it. And then the second that she gets a bite of reality, she's like, oh, how dare they? Judgy, judgy. Again, the lyrics of Common People sum it up nicely.
Yeah.
So finally she says,
It was
So any notes on that scene, dude? The
Yeah.
worst scene in Only Fools and Horses. Off you go.
I mean, I concentrated most of my notes for this scene because there's so many references to this scene throughout all the books that I've read and what I read on the internet. So I basically just summed it up into like what different people from the production and the cast have said. And yeah, so I'm just going to read through some of these quotes. So
Sure.
First of all, this is just from the general page in the lovely Jubbly book, because each episode has a page, and this is a quote directly from that page. So it's written by the writers of the book. So it says, since its broadcast, this special has incurred some criticism and, in some cases, has been unfairly dismissed. One aspect that doesn't seem to work for some viewers is Dell's behavior towards the end of the story. Okay. Instead of being his usual jolly drunken self, David Jason's performance misses the subtlety called for in the script. This isn't helped by the lavish location and its imposing echo. Ironically, if this scene had been filmed in the studio with audience laughter to guide the actor, the scene would have most likely landed perfectly. Usually, John Sullivan would have been on set to offer notes and make sure things unfolded as intended. However, during the Salisbury shootings, he was on location in Paris for Just Good Friends. So let's break that down just to begin with. The whole paragraph sounds like this is all David Jason's fault.
Yes, it does. That is very much blaming David Jason. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, and so... Yes, one of the writers of this book was Jim Sullivan. So he's not going to say, my dad didn't write a
My
very
dad
good script.
fucked up. Yeah.
I don't blame anyone for this because I don't think it's serious enough of a subject for us to blame anybody. It happens, like in art. Things don't come across the way you intended. Maybe the writing wasn't as good. It's making it sound like if there was an audience and John Sullivan had been there, this scene would have been a cracker. I don't think that's true because it's still a horrible storyline for Rodney, no matter what you do with it. He's always going to be the victim of something very embarrassing, very uncomfortable. And if he was in love with Victoria, which we don't think he is, then it's a very devastating thing to happen to him. So no matter what you do, you can't change that. So I don't believe what they wrote is accurate. I mean, I don't believe that I agree with what they wrote here.
No, I completely agree with you. I do think if you want to put blame on something, I agree with you. The storyline is the issue.
Yeah. And then, so we've got a realist. I am not a snob, Rodney. I'm a realist.
I'm a realist.
Ray Butt is a realist. So the lovely Jubbly book is trying to glaze over it and be, no, it's not that bad, which I understand. It's the 40th anniversary special. We don't want to dig into. But so in the original book that was written back in the 90s, the official Inside Story book, Ray Butt's quote is in here, and it says, Ray Butt takes the blame for this scene. He said, I think that scene ruined Dell's regard in the public eye. It was one scene I was not happy with. I think that David went a bit over the top. That was my fault, because I should have spotted it and brought him down. In retrospect, I was not happy with it. I think Dell turned too nasty and lost his warmth. Dell is a villain, fine, but like Bilko, there's warmth there, and you've got to maintain that. So Ray Butt was there on set, and he noticed there was a problem at the time, and he wasn't happy with it, but, as we know, the production was powering ahead on a short schedule, and they had all sorts of issues, like people getting sick and them having to go off and do the Royal Variety performance. So, and then John Sullivan wasn't there. So I don't blame Ray Butt for not really knowing what to do in this case. Should they have refilmed it? Should he have told David Jason to bring it down? It's a combination of factors. It's not just David Jason's performance.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's not a single person or a single thing. But again, I do think ultimately when something goes wrong in drama or theatre or whatever it is, the script is always the first thing you need to look at.
Yeah, definitely. So John Sullivan's quote is, I wish to God I had been there on set for Only Fools and Horses instead of Just Good Friends. It was written for laughs, not drama, and I wanted David to be Dell as a jolly drunk rather than a morose drunk, which is what he ended up looking like. Not having a studio audience didn't help matters either. Yeah, this is the thing that I made a note here. My note says, but the script and the performance are the same. There's no changes in the script here. I don't know how he could have performed the script as a jolly drunk for laughs. Again, it's a story that's the problem. I don't mean to criticize John Sullivan.
No, I agree with you, dude. The story's the problem. Having a laugh track or a live audience would have made it a little bit lighter just because there'd have been laughter, as it does in the DVD version. When you watch it, it looks lighter just because of the laugh track. And obviously you cut out some of the worst parts as well. I think that yeah, not having a laugh track and having the storyline that we did, that Del was sabotaging Rodney's life. That's what was going on here, right? No matter how you want to cut it, that was what the story was. How could you possibly play that for laughs when Rodney is so... I mean, actually, you could even talk about the way that Nick Lyndhurst performed his part in this scene, because he was on the verge of tears, his voice trembling. How could anyone find that funny?
That's the thing. And I guess I could go to the script right now and read, like, but that's how he was told to act. Because, like, a lot of the script goes into a lot of depth. They'll say Rodney has a face of fear, or Rodney is terrified at this. I'm guessing I should look really, but they performed how they were supposed to, and I think
and even all the other characters, Victoria, the way she performed, the way Henry performed, like they were angry, they were upset. Victoria was devastated at the end. How could any of that have been funny?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're all amazing actors and they all did what they were supposed to do. And yes, it probably would have been shot differently had John Sullivan been there. But again, we don't think it could be funny because the storyline's
well, again, even in some ways, you look at, again, John Sullivan desperately trying to make it funny by recutting it, and it still isn't.
No.
Like, there's no way this could be funny. There's nothing you can do to make this situation funny.
Yeah.
Because it's too horrible for Rodney.
Well, so we've got a couple of people online here that said that they think that Del's doing this as revenge because Rodney stopped him going to Australia. They also
that would make sense.
Yeah, that's quite plausible if you look at them as real human people. Also, this is outside of the fiction part. Some people think John Sullivan himself was trying to sabotage the production because he didn't want to do it anymore. The only theory I have about the cut version is cutting it is his way of getting no one to ever watch it again. Because he said...
well, he certainly succeeded there.
He said he didn't ever want anyone watching the 75-minute version, which, I'm sorry to say that we've watched it for this episode, but I think most of the fans agree the 75-minute is better.
Yeah.
And I love John Sullivan and everything he did, but sorry, this is just not one of the strongest scripts that he wrote, and there's nothing wrong with that. You've always got to have your worst episodes.
I mean, my God, exactly. Considering how many episodes of Only Fools and Horses there are, he's lucky there was only a handful that were not very strong. I mean, most of them are pretty strong.
Yeah.
And have stood the test of time. I can't think of many sort of modern comedies that I can foresee people watching 40, 50 years later.
No, exactly. So
and having the same admiration for them. He shouldn't. Yeah, I guess ultimately he was focusing too much on his one failure than on all his successes.
Yeah.
And to be honest, we all have a tendency to do that.
Well, unfortunately,
it's just human nature.
So this was 1986, right? So unfortunately, for the next 10 years, people would go on and on and on about how shit this episode was, and it's a shame because it's like you say, he's going to focus on that negative feedback, which is a shame because his other episodes were so good, and yes, the best is still yet to come,
of course.
But a very unfortunate factor in all of this is that this was so far the most viewed ever episode, at least since an original broadcast, and it happened on Christmas Day, which it's not very nice for Christmas.
But again, it didn't stop people from tuning in again for next Christmas for The Frog's Legacy. Like, people still loved the show, people still loved the characters. It didn't ruin it as everyone seems to think that it did at the time. The fact that John Sullivan used his precious time to recut this episode, it's just, he must have been obsessing about it, like you said, all those years.
Yeah, it's a shame. We'll finish with David Jason's comment, which was, perhaps that scene wasn't as good as it could have been, but the episode itself was fine. Some people think it's a weak episode, but I just think of bits like Del showing up at the clay pigeon shoot with the gun he's borrowed from Iggy Higgins, the bank robber, was classic. So yeah, like I said, David Jason's not overthinking it, which is nice, because it sounds like the writers of the lovely Jubbly book want to just pin this whole failure on his performance, which is not fair. But yes, I don't think that either. And David Jason will always be a great actor.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at this episode objectively, it's got a lot of very memorable moments that are completely different to the rest of Only Fools and Horses. Yeah. And in some ways, that was the risk that was taken with this episode, that it was very different to everything we've seen so far.
Yeah.
It was almost like a love story, which, again, we've only seen a handful of those done in the 30-minute episodes. We've got Pauline and Irene, I think, are the only two that, and maybe you could argue Yesterday Never Comes with Miranda, but not really, because she was conning it. So and Heather, of course, and we know how that went. So I think that it's always a bit of a risk when you sort of bring in sort of a love angle to it. And obviously the monarchy is something that we only saw in one other episode. So it was a risk. This whole episode was a risk. The premise, the idea behind it, the locations, all of the length of the episode, like all of it was a risk.
Yeah.
And so it didn't go well. Okay, but at least they took the risk. And as David Jason said, some of the scenes are really memorable and people remember them fondly, you know, and this one they don't. Okay.
Yeah, I must admit, when I was a kid, and I think you did the same, we watched this episode up to the opera and then we stopped because we didn't even like the second half of the episode. So there's nothing wrong with that. I like the opera bit. Anyway, we have talked.
Yeah, the opera bit was great.
We've talked about this scene for so long. Let's move on to the yelling in the office.
Okay, so now we go outside the dining room and we're in the corridor, and Henry wants Dell and Rodney off his property.
I don't want to talk about the arrangements.
Arrangements? What arrangements?
Well, for Victoria and Rodney's wedding.
Henry is furious upon hearing this.
I thought, we might make the announcements in the Times, the Country Life, and the Pekka Beko.
I just think it's really funny that he mentions the Pekka Echo there. Henry explains that Victoria will not be marrying Rodney because in 2 months she's going to America for a year.
Your brother is not, I repeat, not marrying my daughter!
He says he wants Rodney out of his daughter's life, and this is when Dell decides to use it as an opportunity to make some money. I say this is when he decides. He might have had this decision and this plan all along. So Dell suggests that there is one thing that will get Rodney out of his daughter's life, and then they go into Henry's office to discuss it.
Oh, what is that one?
That's a bloody Da Vinci!
So that's the joke we end the scene with, another Da Vinci joke. And again, probably they're just there to lighten the mood again.
Yeah.
I found the Da Vinci jokes very funny when I was younger.
So did I.
Because repetition, I mean, it's always a
Exactly,
comedic trope,
yeah.
you know, and it works well in this context because, as I said, it's literally the only funny thing in these last few scenes, to be honest. Yeah. So, yeah, it works well. Any notes on that
I just put Henry is very, very rough with Adele. Too rough. And it seems, so at this point, Dell, you've got a question. Was Dell as drunk as he was acting at the table? And I guess if we know his plan, no, because he seems to sober up very quickly in this moment. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think...
In order to be manipulative.
Yes, I think the whole thing is performance to do what he wanted to get his ultimate goal. So, yeah, and then this scene cuts off with what he's suggesting is, let's negotiate. And then it moves straight to Nelson Mandela, right? So here you have to, as an audience member watching it for the first time, you kind of get the idea that they're going to go off and talk about it and you're going to find out exactly what was said. But you don't really, do you? Yeah, so...
We don't. No, not
Let's
really.
move into the next scene. And I do have quite a lot of notes on this scene because, again, one thing I'll say before you even start it is we know that this was probably the scene that was like, oh, shit, we might have to do this live on Christmas Day, which would have been, I don't know how would have happened. But in the script, it actually says that now it's the next morning. Because a lot of people have commented and say, like, how did they get home? They were both drinking. It's a really long way.
That was the question I had, yeah. And where's Albert?
Where's Albert? Yeah, so that's the interesting thing. So in the script, it starts in the morning. It says last night. Like Albert says, what happened last night in the script. There's a whole bit where Albert comes out there and says that it's Sunday morning and the muezzin, you can be heard worshipping outside. And Rodney says he's been up all night thinking about stuff. And the whole scene starts in a completely different way and Albert's there and it's light. So they filmed the entire new scene at night as if they just got back in the dark, which really doesn't help. Yeah. Right?
No.
So yeah, I'll have to talk about all the other lines cut from this because there's actually like 3 or 4 famous Only Fools and Horses lines that are used in the future that were cut from this what should have been this scene. So I'll let you do the breakdown and then I'll go into that. But I just wanted to preface by saying that this whole scene must have been done in, oh my God, quick, get in the studio, film it, it's got to go out the next morning. So it explains a lot.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you say it should have been in the morning because I think that would have certainly helped the mood and the tone because this is so dark and somber. It's almost like someone's died at the beginning of the scene when they pan over to Rodney and he's looking out of the window. It's almost got a darker tone than Strained Relations. I mean, it's really...
I think it's a very sad and dark scene with absolutely no redemption. We don't get a laugh or anything.
Why did they leave the lights out? I mean, there's literally like one light on. Why didn't they just put the normal lights on? Even that would have helped. So
yeah.
But yeah, so Rodney's there still in his dinner jacket, another indication that they've just got back. He's not changed, he's wearing the exact same clothes, and so is Dell. And then Dell enters and yeah, my first thought was, how did they get home? Did they go separately? Did Rodney drive and leave Del in the car, and then Del made his way up slowly after Rodney? Did they bring Albert back with them? I mean, there's all these questions because of when it seems to take place. So Del appears a little bit remorseful at first, but still full of excuses.
Rodney, I was trying to make an impression.
Oh, you made an impression, Del. It was similar to the impression the Americans made at Nagasaki.
This was an interesting choice to go outside of the flat, and I'm not sure if you know why they decided to do that, but they went out into the corridor to do the scene, and I don't understand at all why they did that. I know they're trying to sort of say, like, Rodney stormed out and Del followed him, but why would they stay outside to have this conversation? All the neighbours would have heard.
Yeah.
I will say one thing that I noticed, a bit of an Easter egg, that Millwall is written on the wall outside above Rodney.
I noted that too.
Yeah, it's really interesting because obviously we've spoken about, they always bring up Millwall in the past, so that's quite funny. Albert, again, not there, so they're having this conversation, and Rodney begins.
Why don't you just stay out of my life? For as long as I can remember, Del, it's always been the same. It's just you sticking your oar in.
In the DVD version, the first line of that is cut.
Yeah.
He doesn't say, why don't you just stay out of my life, Del? Just go straight in for as long as I can remember. So, again, little cuts like that. I think we as the viewer have observed that as well, that Del is always sticking his oar into Rodney's life.
Yeah.
But even though we've seen Del sabotaging Rodney's life in previous episodes, there's just something so much darker about this episode. And I do think the lack of a laugh track, as I said, again, really tainted the atmosphere of the episode. But it's also clear to everyone that the way Del acts in this episode is different somehow. You know, he's just being a little bit more mean-spirited. Again, the script, we don't know the way it was acted, the way it was directed, the lighting, the lack of a laugh track, it all contributed, I'm sure. So we get some more stories here that we didn't get to see in episodes, like Rodney mentioning that he tried to join the army cadets. That's new.
Yeah.
And then also that Del wanted to put him back into show business, which he kind of took him out of in It's Only Rock and Roll. So this is just a bit weird.
Yeah.
But then he focuses back on the events of the day.
You humiliated me. You destroyed me in front of all them people.
And yeah, he's right. He destroyed him. And yeah, it's awful. Really awful. We get an attempt at a joke here because Rodney punched the wall in anger earlier when Rodney's sort of talking about all the things that have gone wrong. And he says,
and on top of all that, Del, on top of all that, I think I've broken my hand.
Now, for me, this joke does not land well because you can see how upset Rodney is here and he would not be in the mood to make a joke like this. So it just, it doesn't land at all.
Does the audience laugh in the DVD version?
I don't know. I didn't write it down if they did, but maybe. No, I don't think they do. I think they do just sort of stay silent.
Yeah.
It doesn't land, however you look at it. So Rodney goes back inside the flat and Del follows. So why were they outside the flat and they go back out?
You even went and told the joke about the Irish bloke on a skiing holiday, didn't you?
Now, the problem is, in the DVD version, he still says this line, but he didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to assume it happened off camera. We didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously happened off camera because, Del did not tell this joke in the DVD version. So Del does not seem bothered at this point. He almost shrugs when Rodney says that to him, which is awful. So now we find out that Henry called Rodney into his office before Rodney left and offered him money to stay away from Victoria. I'm actually quite curious why they didn't choose to show that scene. I think that would have been interesting with Del there, with Henry. I don't know, maybe more so than this was. But anyway, this was what happened. We know, the audience, we know that this was orchestrated by Del. And Del feigns surprise that Rodney was offered money.
Horrible, Rodney. He must have felt really horrible. Well, I would have told him what he could do with his money.
I did, son.
Good boy. What? You said nitto to $1,000?
So Del charged £1,000 to get Rodney out of Victoria's life. That's despicable. I'd got him 10. Sorry, that's the liar quote that popped into my head when I was writing this. But yeah, Rodney realizes that Del was the one who arranged all this. And Del now lists all of the reasons why it would never have worked out between Rodney and Victoria, claiming that all the people that look after the royal family would have checked Rodney's criminal history and they would have made him stop seeing her eventually anyway. So why not make some money out of it?
Yep.
I mean, Del's not wrong in the sense that they probably would have kicked Rodney out of her life, but the fact that Del was willing to put Rodney through all this just to for £1,000 is pretty despicable. Del does apologise, but it feels quite empty.
Come on, don't hate me, please, brother.
I don't hate you. I don't bloody like you.
Well, that'll do me, Rodney. Put it there. Now, what are you? What are you, eh?
Such a weird ending. It seems that everything Del just did has no consequences at all for him and Rodney's relationship. And it's like he's so oblivious that he thinks he can just brush it to one side like it was no big deal. It's a very strange episode, a very strange ending. And when you think that this was a Christmas special, it becomes even more unusual. Like, Christmas is meant to be a time of joy and cheer, and they put out one of the most depressing episodes of Only Fools and Horses on that day. So, yeah, happy first Christmas to me.
Yeah, I know, right? You bought a bad omen.
Yeah. I did, obviously. So, yeah, that was all I had for that scene. I assume you have lots to say, so off you go.
I hope this is not too draggy and boring, but yeah, so I mentioned that the scene starts with Albert coming in and it's supposed to be the next morning. Del, in the original script, comes in as he does in Fatal Extraction, the morning after the One Voice incident, acting as if he doesn't know what happened the night before originally. So Rodney, the reason that they put the going out into the hallway thing, I'm guessing, is because in this script they go in the hallway and Rodney has to punch the chute because that's in the script. So they'd probably built the hallway set and that's why they ended up using it. That's my best guess. But they shouldn't have, because... Or maybe it's not a great choice because it's weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
So in this episode then, they walk outside to the chute, in this script, and then the conversation takes place out there instead of in the living room, so Albert can't hear it. But when Rodney storms out, Del says to Albert, have I upset him or something? Which is kind of weird. And then Albert says, upset him? I don't know how the boys managed to keep his hands off you. Last night you drank 1.5 litres of vintage port, you mixed Coca-Cola with their 100-year-old cognac, and then I heard you took some diabolical liberties with a priceless punch bowl. I don't know what you did, but the maid said she'll never drink sangria again. And then Del's like, oh, ain't it marvellous? And then goes out into the hallway to talk to Rodney. So then most of what is said here is what we hear. Okay. So yeah, the conversation that happens out in the hallway, including what happens when they go back in the living room, it was quite difficult reading the script to find bits that were actually still included. This scene would have been like maybe 3 times the length. There's all sorts of extra little bits in here and there. So instead of doing the whole thing, I just decided to just pull out the lines that are used again in the future, because it was always said that John Sullivan overwrote. He wrote really long scripts and they had to get rid of stuff. Yeah. In this case, they obviously did have to get rid of a lot of this dialogue for time, and he loved some of these jokes so much that they ended up in future episodes. So you're going to tell me, I'm going to read them, and you're going to say when they're featured. See if you can. They're talking about all the things that Del has done to sabotage Rodney's future, and Rodney says that he tried to go to tap dancing classes. He was the only child who didn't have proper tap shoes, and Del says that's because your army boots made more noise. Rodney says, oh, they made more noise, all right. I used to make zippity-doo-dah sound like the advance on Leningrad.
Yeah.
Even that painting competition at school. I could have won if it wasn't for you. The art teacher wrote that my marble arch at dusk was a masterpiece. And then Del says, no, he said it was a mantelpiece.
Obviously. The unlucky winner is. That one's easy.
And then it continues. Del says it looked nothing like the Marble Arch, and Ronnie says, well, that's because it wasn't the Marble Arch, it was the Arc de Triomphe, but none of us could spell the Arc de Triomphe. So you said, paint a bus trolley in front of it, and no one will be any the wiser. Same episode again.
So all of that sequence was used, it's at the beginning of the unlucky winner.
And then we move on to a quote Rodney says. He's listing all the things to Albert that Del did the night before. So this is actually before they go into the hallway. And Rodney says, he called the Earl of Stanton a dipstick, showed everyone his scar. He was so drunk he couldn't even order a rum and black. He ordered a bum and rack.
A bum and rack.
Yes. And then Albert orders the bum and rack.
Talking about Albert.
And in this script, it's Albert that says, luckily he didn't fancy a Bucks Fizz. So that line got moved into dates. And then last one, I think. This is the last one I'm going to highlight. There might be more. More lines from the script used in the future. You were having a good time, Del. Everyone else was praying for their appendix to burst.
Oh, that's harder. Hang on, I think
you mentioned it earlier.
Is it Miami Twice?
Yes, it's Miami Twice. So yeah, there's that line.
I finally did well on a quiz.
So, and then do you remember personally that our VHS recording off the TV ended when Rodney is outside and says,
It did.
"Why don't you stay out of my life?" And it cut off.
Yeah.
So when we were kids, we never saw the end. Because I was watching this scene and I was like, I don't remember this at all.
No, I completely agree. And actually, I remember thinking something ominous about that particular setting, like outside in the corridor. I almost felt like it's the end of the show. It was weird. I had this weird association with the ending of that episode because it cut off when it did.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so we didn't watch the end as kids. It's almost like the video recorder had enough and was like, I'm not recording this anymore of this episode for you. But so we didn't need to see the end because I guess we kind of knew that Rodney was upset. But we didn't end up hearing about the £1,000 thing, I guess. So
yeah.
I don't know what I thought. Like, I can't honestly say because now I've watched it.
I know. I was have been so young when I first saw this, you know, probably like 5 or 6 years old. So a lot of it would have gone over my head completely. Like I said, the opera scene sticks with me because that's something that a kid can understand.
And that whole thing with him twisting his hand, which is the end, that's not the end in the original script. So again, I wonder how much of this they just were like, oh, just do this, it'll end the scene. It was so rushed.
It's an awful ending. It's really not a good ending.
But people don't really talk about this scene very much when they are, you know, insulting the episode. People kind of don't talk about this scene, but this scene's actually worse because Del has no remorse and he's not drunk anymore.
Yeah, he has no remorse. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
So the last paragraph and lines in the script are, okay, Del says, No, I didn't actually arrange it. Look, Rodney, them sort of people are looked after by Special Branch and MI6. Don't you think they would have run your name through a computer and found out about your conviction? Then, if you refused to get out of Vicky's life, they would have sent a hit team after you. The next pier you'd have seen was that one at Southend as they rowed you out on the midnight tide. Rodney, a little concerned, says, Course not. So Del says, No? What would they have said to the old Duke then? Don't worry, Your Grace, you ain't losing a daughter, you're gaining a pothead. You'd have been brown bread, Rodney. So, I thought, £1,000 on the Ips better than a poisoned umbrella up the Jacksea. But you dipstick, you turned it down. And Rodney says, yes, I did. And that is how it ends. That is the end of the episode. Yeah. So that's the script. And we know that that's not
how it ends. No, it's got more after it.
So who decided that after all of this, that Del was going to pull on Rodney's broken hand as the end of the episode?
Well, yeah, I mean, he asks like he sort of like in a very I played it earlier, the quote saying about how he asks for like forgiveness, like don't hate me, and he's like, yeah, don't like you, but I don't hate you, and he's like, good enough for me then, and then like that's the end of the episode. It just feels very flippant considering how much build up we've had in this episode to get to this point. It's very like sort of, oh well, what are you going to do? And it's like, no, this was like soul destroying.
That totally makes sense that it sounds flippant because it was thrown together flippantly in a rush, right? And edited in a day while they were like sleeping on the floor. So
yeah,
if we put all of those, all that into consideration, everything that we've talked about in this episode, it kind of makes sense that it wasn't a very good episode. Yeah, it would have been a miracle if it had turned out. The miracle of Peckham. It would have been a miracle.
Well, some of it did turn out okay. Like we said, it's not all terrible. It's just that because of the terrible bits are so not good that it kind of overshadows any good bits in the episode.
Right. Okay. I think we've talked for long enough. Yeah. What do you think? Move on to the awards.
Yeah.
What are you on about? I won!
As always, we have 3 awards to announce this week, and we will start with Del of the Week. I mean, Plonker of the Week.
Und Plonker, yeah?
Yes, it's clearly Del. I don't think we need to talk about this. Del is the Plonker of the Week. Next.
Yes. I really do think we don't need to discuss it. Although, like,
no.
Henry is a bit of a plonker, but, you know, nobody could beat Del in this episode, so sorry.
Del is clearly the biggest plonker in this episode, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, so this week, Heather will have the task of best line and I will award best moment. So let's do some positive stuff now. There are some great lines in this episode, so what did you choose?
So I have 3 to choose from. I chose Iggy Higgins, fucking hell, I can't say it. Iggy Higgins.
You keep adding a G.
I know, right. But it's Saturday. Yeah. I know, I'm sorry.
Iggy Higgins.
Iggy Higgins. Higgy Higgins. There we go. If I say it with a her, it's easier. And then we've got I've seen wounds dress better than you. And finally, well, Carmen's an hairdryer, innit?
Oh, that's a good one.
So I actually am tempted to give it to June's line because I love June in this episode and we don't have enough of her and I want more. Yeah. So I will give it to, well, Carmen's an hairdryer, innit?
Yeah, that's a good one.
That is the best line of this episode. Yeah. So how about you, dude? What is the best moment of this episode? When it ends.
Yeah, the best moment is when our video decided to cut off recording. Oh dear, look, we've been cut off. So I put the opera, and I know that's very general, but I guess the moment where he whistles along was almost my favourite moment as a kid, and I loved all the scene in the opera when I was a kid. I never hated it.
Yeah,
I love What a Crisp. And so, yeah, I'm going to give it to Del whistling along to the song.
And what will you be giving to the DVD version? Because that's not in it.
Was your line in the DVD version?
Yes.
Oh, shit. What's left in the DVD?
Not much.
No, we said we're doing the uncut version, so I do not have a best moment for the DVD. The best moment is when I put it on the back of my shelf and never touched it again.
Fantastic.
I think we've dragged this out long enough, so drink up, we're leaving.
Okay, so that about wraps it up for this week. So join us next week when we'll be discussing the 1987 Christmas special, The Frog's Legacy. Until then...
Au revoir, listeners. If you like what you hear and want to contact us, you can email us at longlivehookeystreetpodcast@gmail.com. All one word, no spaces.
Please like the video and subscribe. And please use the link in the description for our Buy Me a Coffee.
Bonjour.